Barbara Palmer, née Villiers, 1st Duchess of Cleveland. She was born on the 17th of November 1640 at the parish of St Margaret's, City and Liberty of Westminster. She died on the 9th of October 1709, aged 68, at Chiswick Mall in Chiswick. Her first husband was Roger Palmer, 1st Earl of Castlemaine. Her second husband was Robert Fielding. This was a bigamous marriage, so in the eyes of the law, it was null and void. She had 6 children: Anne Leonard, Charles Fitzroy, Henry Fitzroy, Charlotte Lee, George Fitzroy, and Barbara, Sister Benedicta Fitzroy. Her parents were William Villiers, 2nd Viscount Grandison, and Mary Baning. Born into the Villiers family as Barbara Villiers in the parish of St Margaret's, Westminster, Middlesex, she was the only child of William Villiers, 2nd Viscount Grandison, and his wife, Mary Baning. On the 29th of September 1643, her father died in the First English Civil War from a wound sustained on the 26th of July at the storming of Bristol. Shortly after, Barbara's mother married Charles Villiers, 2nd Earl of Anglesey, a cousin of her late husband. Upon the execution of King Charles I in 1649, the impoverished Villiers family secretly transferred its loyalty to his son, Charles, Prince of Wales. Every year on the 29th of May, the new king's birthday, young Barbara, along with her family, descended to the cellar of their home in total darkness and clandestinely drank to his health. Tall, voluptuous, with masses of long hair, slanting, heavy-lidded violet eyes, alabaster skin, and a sensuous, sulky mouth, Barbara Villiers was considered to be one of the most beautiful of the Royalist women, but her lack of fortune left her with reduced marriage prospects. Her first serious romance was with Philip Stanhope, 2nd Earl of Chesterfield, but he was searching for a rich wife. He would wed Elizabeth Butler in 1660. On the 14th of April 1659, she married Roger Palmer, later 1st Earl of Castlemaine, against his family's wishes. His father predicted that she would make him one of the most miserable men in the world. The two separated in 1662, following the birth of her first son. They remained married until the death of Roger, who predeceased Barbara. It has been claimed that he did not father any of his wife's children. Barbara became King Charles's mistress in 1660, while she was still married to Palmer, and while Charles was still in exile at The Hague. The Palmers had joined the ambitious group of supplicants who sailed from Brussels at the end of 1659. As a reward for her service, the king created her husband, Baron Limerick and Earl of Castlemaine, in 1661. In many contemporary accounts, including Pepys's diary, she is referred to as Lady Castlemaine. By 1662, Barbara had more influence at the court than Charles's wife, Catherine of Braganza. In point of fact, she chose to give birth to their second child at Hampton Court Palace, while he and the Queen were honeymooning. In the summer of 1662, she was appointed Lady of the Bedchamber, despite opposition from Queen Catherine and Edward Hyde, chief advisor to the king and a bitter enemy of Barbara. Behind closed doors, Barbara and the Queen feuded constantly. She combined with the future Cable Ministry to bring about Clarendon's downfall. On his dismissal in August 1667, Barbara publicly mocked him. Clarendon gently reminded her that if she lived, one day she too would be old. His dislike of her probably sprang from the fact that she was his cousin by marriage, and he felt personally embarrassed by her role as royal mistress. Barbara's influence over the king waned. Her victory in being appointed as Lady of the Bedchamber was followed by rumours of an estrangement between her and the king, the result of his infatuation with Francis Stuart. In December 1663, she announced her conversion to Roman Catholicism. Some believe it was an attempt to consolidate her position with the king, and some believe it was a way of strengthening her ties with her Catholic husband. The king treated the matter lightly, saying that he was interested in ladies' bodies, but not their souls. The court was equally flippant, the general view being that the Church of Rome had gained nothing by her conversion, and the Church of England had lost nothing. In June 1670, Charles created her Baroness Nonsuch, as she was the owner of Nonsuch Palace. She was also briefly granted the ownership of Phoenix Park in Dublin as a present from the King. She was made Countess of Castlemaine and Duchess of Cleveland in her own right. However, no one at court was sure if this was an indication that she was being jettisoned by Charles, or whether this was a sign that she was even higher in his favour. The dukedom was made with a special reminder which allowed it to be passed to her eldest son, Charles Fitzroy, despite his illegitimacy. She was known for her dual nature. Diarist John Evelyn called her the course of the nation, yet others described her as great fun, keeping a good table, and with a heart to match her famous temper. She took advantage of her influence over the king, using it to her own benefit. She would help herself to money from the privy purse and take bribes from the Spanish and the French. She was famously extravagant and promiscuous. She also meddled in politics, supporting the Second Dutch War, declared in February 1665, along with most of the court and parliament. But there are accounts of exceptional kindness from Barbara. Once, after a scaffold had fallen onto a crowd of people at the theatre, she rushed to assist an injured child, and she was the only court lady to have done so. In 1670, Charles II gave her the famed Nonsuch Palace. She had it pulled down around 1682 and sold off the building materials to pay off her gambling debts. While the king had taken other mistresses, the most notable being the actress Nell Gwynn, Barbara took other lovers too, including the acrobat Jacob Hall, Henry Germain, 1st Baron Dover, and her cousin John Churchill. Her lovers benefited financially from the arrangement. Churchill purchased an annuity with £5,000 she gave him. The king, who was no longer troubled by Barbara's infidelity, was much amused when he heard about the annuity purchased by Churchill, saying that, after all, a young man must have something to live on. As the result of the 1673 Test Act, which essentially banned Catholics from holding office, she lost her position as Lady of the Bedchamber, and the king cast her aside completely from her position as mistress, taking Louise de Querouaille as his newest favourite royal mistress. The king advised his former mistress to live quietly and cause no scandal, in which case he cared not whom she loved. In 1676, the Duchess travelled to Paris with her 4 youngest children, but returned to England 4 years later. She was reconciled with the king, who was seen enjoying an evening in her company a week before he died in February 1685. After the king's death, the 45-year-old Duchess began an affair with Cardinal Goodman, an actor of terrible reputation, and in March 1686 she gave birth to his child, a son. In 1705 Roger Palmer died and she married Major General Robert Fielding, an unscrupulous fortune hunter whom she later had prosecuted for bigamy after she discovered that he had married Mary Wordsworth in the mistaken belief that she was an heiress. Just 2 weeks before he married Barbara, she had complained of his barbarous ill treatment of her after she stopped his allowance and was eventually forced to summon the magistrates for protection. Barbara died at the age of 68 on the 9th of October 1709 at Chiswick Mall after suffering from oedema, known at the time as dropsy. Today this would be described as oedema of the legs with congestive heart failure. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, click the like button and please subscribe. Thank you.